An Austin father is at home with his two young sons tonight. That's after they were kidnapped by their own mother.
You might think a kidnapping would be investigated immediately, but it took 9 months before authorities took on this case, and that's how long KXAN has been following this story. Investigator Shannon Dawn has the latest developments.
Well, Stephen James last saw his children on June 20th, 2012. A judge gave him sole custody of his sons, 9-year-old Zane and 12-year-old Mateo. Their mother was only allowed supervised visits when she disappeared with the boys.
It's scary, it's overwhelming, it's just really hard.
For Stephen James, the road to reuniting with his sons is paved with painful emotions.
Really excited at the possibility of being reunited with my sons again, but really scared too.
To understand his fear, you have to know how he got here.
I haven't even been in their bedroom, since they left. I can't hang up, pictures of them everywhere. I can't think about it.
When his ex-wife Alicia kidnapped his sons last summer, Stephen went to everyone he could think of for help. For 9 months, local, state, and federal law enforcement all told him there was nothing they could do. He even hired an international private investigator and came to KXAN for help. Months later, in March, a huge break after a new DA took over in Williamson County and issued felony aggravated kidnapping warrants for Alicia Gomez. DA investigator Roger Harris tracked the boys to a town outside Veracruz and confirmed their location through a source who took these photos of them living in deplorable conditions.
Right over here to this car here.
Harris arrested Alicia's aunt for aiding in the kidnapping and sending money to Mexico. The pressure on Alicia's family helped investigators come up with a plan to get the boys back. She and the kids traveled to a meeting point on the other side of the border. And that's what put us on the road to Laredo 2 weeks ago.
It's hard for me to put too much into it. We've been close before and it didn't happen, and it's a long way down if it doesn't happen.
Stephen went to bed on June 30th, not knowing what the next day would bring. The next morning, as the moonlight faded away, the Laredo sky turned a glorious orange with the promise of a new day and what could be the beginning of a new life for a dad waiting for so long. Did you sleep at all?
Very little. I woke up constantly, more than usual. So it's hard to be patient right now, real hard. The last time we got close like this and it didn't happen, I almost ended up in the hospital. It was completely devastating to me. Just thinking back to that day, I'm trying not to allow myself to be that vulnerable again right now.
While Stephen waited, a well-planned law enforcement operation to get the boys back was going on here at the border. The Williamson County District Attorney's Office orchestrated a plan to get the boys back on U.S. soil and back in their father's arms. Stephen was in the dark about the details, and the hours of waiting started to take a toll.
I've never been this scared in my life. There is that part of fear that's not going to happen, but it's also just the fear of how much damage has been caused and how much they've suffered.
Where are they now? But then a phone call. And when will they be back? And it was finally time to share some good news with Stephen James. So I have some news for you.
Okay.
Your boys are on U.S. soil right now.
You're trying to break me down. Where are my sons at?
They're going to be here pretty soon to see you.
Oh, man.
It's good news.
Yeah, it is. How do they look? Have you seen them yet?
We hadn't seen them because back at the border, Zane and Mateo were still being processed through Immigration and Customs. But the news was too sweet not to share with the rest of his family.
They're on U.S. soil.
They are? Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the dad who'd fought so hard to keep it together,
they're with Roger.
Finally,
right now.
Just let it all go. Then there was an important phone call to make.
Hello?
Hi, Mom.
Hi, honey.
Our boys are back.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew that. I was just waiting for you to say it.
They need Steve and his son down here ready to go to the border.
Oh, they're going to take them?
Yeah, no cameras.
At the border, in a room inside Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Stephen reunited with his boys after 376 long days. His smile tells the story in this video shot by his son Mark. The boys, dirty and thin, were fascinated by the video games Dad brought for them. But after their brief visit, Stephen explained why it wasn't the storybook reunion you might think.
They weren't like daddy and wanted to hug me either. They were just like, didn't know what to do. It was really awkward for them, I could tell.
But they warmed up quickly, and thanks to the hard work of private investigator Logan Clark and his team, and a bulldog investigator in the Williamson County DA's office, there would be plenty of time to get to know each other again.
As other counties in Texas will listen to this and follow this exact procedure, just follow the law and stop using selective prosecution.
Harris organized the boys' return and employed the strategy of arresting Alicia's family members and using that pressure to get the boys home.
We're relieved to have the kids back. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Okay, now we're getting one up.
Back home with Dad, the boys are doing the things little boys do. This home video shows them playing video games and swimming in Grandma's pool. And on July 4th, Zane and Mateo and Stephen watched fireworks, celebrating their own kind of freedom and independence.
Well, Alicia Gomez did not cross the border with Zane and Mateo because if she did, she would have been arrested immediately. That felony kidnapping warrant for her is still active. So this story has a happy ending, but our investigation brought to light not every case turns out this way.
Now we got to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else.
In the moments after his boys were returned to him, Stephen's thoughts went to those other parents who are still waiting, the ones who never get any help.
Stephen fought for his country and gave 20 years of his life to the military. And his country didn't fight for him.
When a parent reports to a law enforcement agency, my child is missing, most of them don't do a thing. Why not?
It's a mindset that it's not a crime. It's a civil problem and not a criminal problem.
Why did you take this case when so many other people wouldn't?
Because it's a crime. And it's what any law enforcement agency should do.
But in Texas, where interfering with child custody is a felony, many agencies won't even make a report.
Tell me about the challenge with law enforcement.
Sometimes I've had kind of pushback from law enforcement in this, and I think it's because of that experience they have of not wanting to get involved in child custody issues and that distaste for those cases.
Pamela Brown is an attorney with Texas Rural Legal Aid. From her office in Weslaco, less than 2 miles from the Mexican border, she's been fighting for left-behind parents for more than a decade, even training law enforcement across the state how to handle cases just like Stephen's.
It is a big problem that is growing.
In Texas, the Department of Public Safety's Missing Persons Clearinghouse lists 44 missing children, all taken illegally by a family member. 44 open cases, 44 parents who have no idea where their child is. But the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has more than 100 cases of children abducted by a family member in just the past year in Texas. Around 30 of those children are in Mexico. In all, the center has 60 active cases of children from Texas who've been taken to Mexico by a family member. International private investigator Logan Clark often gets involved in child kidnappings because the feds just won't. He supports the strategy employed by Williamson County to issue a kidnapping warrant for Stephen's ex-wife.
Right over here to this car here.
And to put pressure on any family members who helped her.
When you start doing that, these people will, the mom or the dad, whoever does it, will come back. They will bring those children back so fast it'll make everybody's head swim because their whole family's going to jail.
What do you hope happens with these cases now as a result of what happened with Zane and Mateo?
It's my hope that other prosecution offices around the state takes our lead and prosecutes these cases. The ramifications to these children, the mental abuse, the physical abuse, the neglect, it's far-reaching.
Well, we know there are many parents in similar situations, so we're providing links at KXAN.com to the DPS Missing Persons Clearinghouse and to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You should also know about the Hague Abduction Convention Treaty. It's an agreement between some countries to return children who are kidnapped by a parent. Watch for that tonight on KXAN News at 10. And if you have a tip for our Investigates team, just email us at investigates@KXAN.com. You can also call that number on your screen. It's our tip line, 512-703-52